Welcome students, I'm Deepak Kumar and I'm taking you through this Visual C# tutorial. The topics I'll be touching on are list boxes and loops. And while our focus will remain on the topics of how to use list boxes to populate your data and eventually how to use loops to handle or manipulate that data. We will also be working towards developing a small application that eventually would demonstrate how the loops work and eventually show us how we can do accumulation, how we can do certain other operations with the data. So let's begin. And obviously we begin by creating a new application. I hope you have a fairly good idea how to create a new application. You obviously go to the file, you go to the new, you go to the project, and there you specify your Windows application name. I've already created one application for you, but just for the sake of re-emphasizing certain things, I would like to mention that when you're saving your projects, make sure you put a relevant name to your project, your application. And other point is to be very careful about where you are saving your project. So your location where you save the project by clicking on that browse button and eventually looking at the right location and selecting the right path is very important. At times what happens is if you don't really change the location, and I would suggest you to do so. I would suggest you to create a folder, specific folder for your all your practicals and your other practice sessions that you do, and save your projects over there. If you don't do that, you probably are saving your projects into a location which is a default location for saving the projects in your Visual C# IDE, and that is in Documents. And eventually in the version of Visual Studio that you're using here, it's Visual Studio 2015, and go to the projects folder and then you will see all your applications listed there. So as you can see, it's quite a longish path, and if you have already saved your project there, you can copy paste them from here to your favorite location. So I would suggest you to select the right folder and the right path, and I've already done so. So I'm saving my projects in one of the locations I want to save in OneDrive, and I've browsed and I've already given that as a location here. Alright, so once you click OK, since I've already created the project, I would rather prefer to say cancel over here. Now once you have created the project, and the project has been created by the name of C# list loops in this example, you obviously land up with your first form. Now I would suggest you to obviously go to the properties and name your form to a relevant name. By default the name is form1, but of course you can change it to any name which is more relevant. So here we have named it as city regis form. If you have already saved it by the name of form1, you can of course change the name later on, and once you do that, you will see a simple way of going to the code view is by right clicking and selecting view code for this form. So once you do that, you basically land up with your form right over there, and the form initially has only a few components. The form will have some set of code which obviously shows up some set of namespaces or packages that your Visual Studio uses or your Visual C# environment uses to provide you certain support for data collections, for link, for other things. We'll talk about one specific support right over here. And you have a namespace. A namespace name will be the project name, whatever the project application name is. So whatever the initial application name is, of course you can change the name later on. That would be showing up here as the project application name. So this is the application name, and then you have a partial class, and that shows you the form name and the form. So your form which you are creating actually in this example is city register form. It's derived from a form class. So your system.windows.form, this namespace provide you with a set of classes, and one of the classes is form, and your form that you are creating is a customized form which is inherited from this form class. So it derives a lot of functionality automatically from that form class. So we'll talk about that as well. Alright, so the other code that you find default is public and the name of the form class. So this is your default constructor for the form class. So this default constructor normally has a initialize component method. This method actually is further initializing all the components of your project, and that happens in your designer class, form designer class. So in your form designer class, all these components are handled, but you don't have to do anything. This happens automatically. This takes care of whenever you add a new component to the form, or whenever you take away any or you remove any component from the form. So this handles all that automatically for you. The other thing is that whenever you are double clicking on your form, like I have a blank form at the moment, whenever I will double click on this form, you'll see that there will be a form load event which is created for you. Now in this case, as you can see, that your form name is city regis form, right? But the event created over here is form 1. So you can change this to the right name, which is your city regis form. City regis form dot load, and this should contain obviously this can contain some certain things for you. I just wanted to demonstrate that this is a system generated event procedure. There are two kind of event procedures. One is the system generated one, other is the user generated. So if you click on a button, that basically is a user generated event procedure. So we'll demonstrate that as well. So that is a user generated event procedure. So once you have a blank form, probably it will just have a like in this case, if I have created already a event procedure, if I delete that, probably that will show me some sort of errors, and we'll look at that again. Probably we have to remove those errors eventually. So here, as you can see, once you have done this, as you have created you have created this form load event, you can see that you see a message over here, which normally when you start changing the name, automatically it shows you a notification box over here, which actually represents whatever the changes you are making. So you can press Control full stop key, or you can click on this show potential fixes button, which says that you are renaming this to this form 1, and if you click on this event, obviously this is where it comes up. So it says you are renaming this event, and normally it shows you a sort of a box over here which shows that this is the potential fixing box. So it says renaming it, and you have to say okay, accept. You say rename it, yeah, you click this box over here, and now this would obviously would be renaming your form name, like in this case. So all right, so in this case we have seen that rename has been accepted, but at times you will see that you have to click on that extended notification box to accept the change, and probably at times you also have to go down into the designer to change some code. So you will see some errors over here, and you have to click on those errors to figure out what code has to be changed, and eventually after that change you will be able to see the new code. So as I mentioned to you that there are two kind of events, like this is the window that you face whenever you see any kind of deletion or any kind of changes that you make to an existing designer form. So if you click on this error message over here, it will show you that the event here was form_load, which was being deleted. So one thing is probably you would be avoiding to delete any code if you have done that, or if you have done it already, you have to remove a particular load event from there. So this code has to be deleted as well in order to remove any of those deletion or other kind of errors. So you see that error has gone away. Anyway, so this is for demonstration purpose. We will also come back to that again when we see that some code has to be changed in the designer, and that will show up as an error, and if you click on that error it will show a certain line of code. So avoid deleting any code, but yes, at times if you have to do it, you may have to go and remove that from designer as well. So we'll see while we go further on to this. Okay, so let's take this form here. I was telling you about the system generated event, which is form load. To demonstrate that event, I would just double click on this, and I'll see that event procedure has been generated for me, and this is a system generated event procedure. Just to display how it works, I would say I would put a message box over here and just put a show method to say welcome to ListBox and loops tutorial. This ends up with a semicolon. Now what this ListBox, this is just to demonstrate that your system generated event, which is your form name.load event, and in this case, as you have seen that this is generated, okay, I already have that event over here, and this is the new event which has been generated, by the way. So if we look at this, we can obviously remove this one, and we can hopefully we don't get the same error again, and we will we do have got the same error again. So once you have generated a particular event, it just creates a duplicate event of that. So we will be again going down and removing this line of code from there. Okay, and we'll rather go to the form code, the form that we have already created, and we will be coding the existing event over there. So we, rather than double clicking and going to the new event, we'll rather we can code a new event, or probably we might also have to create a new form. Let's maybe we can begin by creating a new form and deleting the existing form by doing it from scratch. So let's see how it works. Alright, so here we have this, and we are saying ListBox and use loops tutorial. So we have just coded this event over here. The other event we will be coding is, of course, I'll try remove this this event procedure from there as well. So we only have one event procedure. Of course, it will again show us, probably some code errors. Okay, it hasn't yet. All right. So basically, this is a simple example that we have so far. Let's just to test this example, we will run it. First, we will simply save this. So this is a form. Probably just to show up something. I would just save this. By saving it, I would rather prefer to click on Save All button. Don't use Save As option, because that makes you into the risk of running into saving this form separately into a different location than the whole set of form. Your form contains many different files. As you can see in your Solution Explorer window, you have different references. You have different files, which are the designer files, the resource files, and you also have your C# other files that you have created right over there. So these all files form together the whole holistic project that gives you the functionality to run it. So you should try avoiding saving the forms in a different location. So you just click on Save All when you want to run this project. So we will click on Save All, and then we will click on Start. So once we are starting this, we are running this form. You probably will see that, okay, we have this form right over here. And where is my okay, so where is my form.cs? Okay, looks like we have already created a duplicate event procedure over here. So probably we will be using this one, or leaving the other one right over there. So we have put this one. We will remove the other code, and obviously we will remove this one here as well. So basically we have removed the old event procedure, and we have a new event procedure over here. We'll save it and we'll run it again. So this is the new event procedure that we just, this is the system event procedure that we have, which obviously shows the message that welcome to the ListBox and loops tutorial. Okay, so and then we see the form right over here. Now what is the purpose of this event procedure? This event procedure can be used to initialize certain variables that we have created. Now say for example, here we have created one variable string count. Now this variable that we have created can be initialized into this event procedure, because this event procedure executes first in your program. So whenever your form loads, automatically your form name.load event procedure is initiated. So we have count is equal to 0, and this initialization has been done right over here. Okay, so that's something we have done for the initializing our count variable, which we will be using in our loops pretty soon. Now I wanted to demonstrate a few interface objects, a few controls that we have to put up here on this form, and we are using this one. This label over here to create a click the button to add city name. So we are creating a button over here. Button name is add city. Well, obviously this is the label. If we create a button, obviously the name of the button is button 1. Just to demonstrate to you, what happens when you change the button name later on, I'll leave it as button 1, although I would advise you to change the button name right in the first place. But we'll see what happens if we change the name in the code itself. So we will also add a few more things. We will add a list box right over here. You can also copy paste your labels or your buttons to quickly create more labels and more buttons if you don't want to every time go and change your labels. So this label over here, well, you have to be careful that the name property has been selected, and if I want to change, I have to go to the text property to change the label name or whatever label is being displayed here. I would call it the city. Okay. Now we will click on the city button over here, double click on the city button rather, to go to the event procedure. And okay, looks like we have to recreate this form. I think let's just recreate this form. So I would rather start from scratch, because I think after too much of deletion and all that, I have created a few problems over here. So we'll go to the file, we'll say add, we'll say we'll rather go to the project and we'll say add Windows form. The form obviously is called form2.cs. In the first place, I'll call it as city form. Add it. I'll repeat some of the steps that I have already done. I'll double click on the form to go to the event procedure as I was mentioning to you. Type down message box to display that this is the event procedure that is being initiated right in the first place. Welcome to ListBox and loops tutorial. I did create an I created a string type variable counter, and I initialized that over here. So I'm just repeating certain steps that I've already done. Further, in this list box, we will be using an input box to capture input from the user and to further display that into the list box. So in order to do that, we will be I'm sure you have already done that in some of the pracs. I'm just reiterating through that steps if you haven't done it. So basically you would go to your application name, you would right click, you'll go to the add and go to the reference option, and over there you will include Visual Basic. Basically your input box comes from Visual Basic package, and you would include this Visual Basic package or the namespace into this project to utilize that input box. So we will type on Visual Basic, and you would be selecting Visual Basic right over here. This package already has been added to it, so that is why you already see it here, and you will say on OK. So since we have already added it, probably we will simply use it. Now next step is going to be to import that package into your application, and for that purpose you would be using keyboard and using keyword, and you will be specifying the system dot you will be specifying the Microsoft dot Visual Basic package over here. So once you have done that, you will be utilizing it to capture the input from the user. Okay, the next thing we will do is, obviously we'll go to our city form design here. I think I'm just removing the other forms because I don't need that. I'll say no. So this is the new form that we have already created. Just to see that this form is running, and we would obviously delete form 1. Let's see if that provides some problem to us. Form 1 will be deleted. Yeah. So we have deleted this form 1, and just to make sure that our project has not been I think I have some errors over here before I go to that. So if I go to my code, I think, okay, I just created a int type counter over here, and I'm supposed to create it as int type, not as string type. So some of the errors will be committed here, and you must treat them as deliberate errors, and take them as a lesson to avoid those errors basically. So that's what we have done. So we created a integer type counter over here, and we initialize that counter to 0 here, which we will be using in our loops eventually. So we only have very basic code over here where we have a system event procedure called form name.load, city form.load in this case, to display a message, a welcome message. So we will save this form and we will start to run this. So just to test whether everything is so far going okay, we will start. And we have some errors over here, okay. So we will see that what the errors we have. Okay, so we have this city regis form, which was the old one, and as you can see, we have to change the name here to the new form, which is the city form. So once we have done the change, the errors have gone away. So this is the first method that executes in your Visual Basic project, which is your static void main. And this static void main actually initializes a few components over here, as you can see, and it runs your first form, which is your city form, in this case. So this application.run method actually runs your first form in your project. So our first form is now city form. We deleted the previous form because we made some funny changes there. So now we save this and we start just to see that our project is running fine. And if we see this message, that means our method, which is your form load method, has been instantiated and it has executed, and that is why we see the message box and then we see the form. Now we will be obviously customizing this form to our requirements to create an interface for our application. So let's do that. Okay, I did mention to you that we are supposed to put a label here to say click on the button to add city to list box. So this is my first label over here, right? And then I would add a button. Button is called add city. As I was displaying to you, the default name for this button is button 1. I would change the name later on and obviously show you that if you change the name later on, what happens. So we'll try and see that as I was demonstrating in the, earlier as well. And then we will be putting up a list box over here as well. So this is a basic interface we are creating in first place, and further we will expand it later on. So here we are, just another label on the top to say that this is our city list box. When we double click on this button, it creates a event procedure called button1.click. Now if I change the name for this button, from button 1 to add city button, and I double click on this, you will see that I'm still taken to the same event procedure. This event procedure has been created to handle the clicking of that button, and this event procedure, obviously the name change doesn't reflect here, so I have to manually change the name, which is add city button. It has to be typed in the same way exactly. Once you do that, you see an error message has cropped up, and here you see that this box has been highlighted. When you click on this, you would also notice that it shows up sort of an error over here. If you click on control dot or you click on this link here, it shows you a window to display that in your designer code, form designer code, there are a few entries, and this entry has to be changed from button 1 click to add city button underscore click. So if you click on preview changes, it will take you to the code which resides into your file over there, into your designer file. As you can see over here, cityform.designer.cs actually has this code, and which still needs to be updated. And if you click on apply, obviously the name change happens and the error messages go away. So this is what you have to do. You have to go and change the name manually if you are changing it. So I deliberately displayed that to you, or you can simply plan your button names and your control names right in first place, so you don't have to go and do these changes later on. Okay, so this is our city button click event procedure that we are coding up here. Okay, as I did mention to you, I did went to references and I did add that Visual Basic by selecting this checkbox, and once I have added this, I should be able to add this line Microsoft.Visual Basic into the list of packages or the list of namespaces that I have already in my project. So once I have done that, I should be able to use that into my ListBox. So I will first start by typing a message box again. And we are creating a loop over here. So basically this will be displayed in a loop. So we will say messagebox.show, please enter city name in input box. All right, so we have got this here. Now this obviously will be in a loop, so it will be displayed up there. So in order to do that, we will create a loop. So I will demonstrate a while loop and for loop to you, and I'll also demonstrate two different variations of while loop. One is called the do while loop. If you remember, if you have gone through the slides, probably you can recall that we have a do while loop and we have a while loop. So we will see both the implementations right here. So first, obviously we have the while loop, and while loop will have a condition. Count is, we are running this loop till 5, so we'll say the count is equal to, did we have the count or the counter? We have okay, did we use the counter? Okay, that's fine. So that's probably the counter is less than equal to 0, right? So we have created a loop. Obviously the loop will have starting and closing curly braces, and this has to be within the loop. This is the body of the loop. So you can remove this curly brace from here, and then you can type down a closing curly brace right over here. So now you have a body of the loop. Obviously you have seen that it starts with the first message over here, which is a message box, right? Please enter city name into the input box. Next, we will be creating a string type of variable to capture the city name which has been entered into the input box. So we are creating a string type variable called city, which is a local variable, and we will be using this statement interaction dot input box. Now let's look at the parameters of this input box that we have right over here. This input box will take different parameters. The first one obviously is the message. The message displayed will be please enter city name, comma, and then in quotes we will be putting up the next one, which is going to be the title. So we will call it as city input box. So we have it as a city input box, and the next one is going to be the default value. The default value in this case, we are just typing out city here, although it can take any numeric value, which probably would be a default value in certain cases when you have to assign a default value. Next two parameters are two integer type parameters, and they represent the position of your message, your input box on the screen, where exactly you want the input box to appear. If you use -1, which is the default values, which means that your input box of the first one represents the X position, So your x position, which means the x-axis position, will be somewhere in the middle of the list of the screen, and the second one represents your y position, which means where exactly what in a vertical space, where exactly will be the input box displayed. You can specify the pixel position, the pixel value here, that you want it to be displayed 200 pixels and 300 pixels down. Or you can simply leave it as default by -1, So we'll leave it at default by -1 at the time being, and we'll proceed further to display this value. The next step is going to be capturing this value into the list box. So we will be adding this value into the list box. Since we didn't change the name of the list box, our list box name is listbox1. So listbox1 dot items dot add method will be used to add a new item to the list box, and the value is here in the city, right? So this will be added to the list box. Now, if I ask you the question that we leave this code as it is, what will happen to this loop? How many times will this loop execute? And I'm using it to demonstrate the loop behavior as well while we are discussing this. So I would simply put a comment here to say that this code adds a city to the list box. So let's save it and execute it, and let's see what happens. If you click on start, of course our event procedure has executed, which is a system event procedure, and we see the form right over here. So if we click on add city, this button that we have just been programming, we get a message box says enter the city name in the input box and say okay. This is an input box that appears, and as mentioned to you, it appears since we gave the position default as -1. So first thing is we have the title over here, we have the message over here, we have the default value city displaying over here. So if you remember, these were the parameters we have given into the input box method, and then we had -1. So as a result of that, we'll see that your your horizontal position is right in the middle of the screen, whereas your vertical position is somewhere slightly also in the middle, but a little bit on top. It's almost like 1/3 of the position of the screen. So here we will enter a city name, and we'll click on OK. Again, we see another message. Please enter a city name in input box. If you click on OK, you'll see another message, and we see that the message the city names are being added to the list box. Now this process continues. Probably I'll get tired of entering all the names to it. So now what has happened here, as you can see, that my loop has become an infinite loop or an endless loop. So if you don't specify, and why is that happening, is basically because I have to stop my program over here. If you look at the code again, you'll see that I have a condition here while the counter is less than equal to 0. Did I say that? Okay. So if this condition is true, this condition is always going to be true and it will never become false unless we change it. So on the other way, if I say that okay, this condition never becomes false because we said the counter is less than equal to 0, and the counter is 0, as you can see here in the code. We initialize it with 0 value, and since this is not incrementing, we see that the loop becomes an endless loop, right? Now we'll see another variation of the same loop over here. Let's say, since the counter is not incrementing, as we have seen, the condition never becomes false, it remains true, and the loop keeps on executing endlessly. The other thing I want to demonstrate here is, if we say let's start the counter from 0, or rather start the counter is equal to 1, and then we have display while the counter is less than equal to 0. Now in this situation, obviously our condition is false right in the first place, and we'll try to execute this loop to see if this loop runs. So we start, we click on add city, and we see that the code is not running, which means that the loop is not executing. And why is loop not executing is simply because our condition is false right in the first place. Our condition is false right over here. Okay. Now if we try to change this to a do while loop by putting this condition over here, while counter is equal to 0, the condition obviously has gone right over here. And here we put a do. So now let's see how it behaves. So we have this loop which starts with the do keyword, and it executes obviously certain instructions for us, as you can see right over here. And the condition checking happens right over here. Now we see the condition, obviously the counter is equal to 1, and the loop should execute while the counter is less than equal to 0. Now the condition is false in first place. So will the loop execute? That is the question. So let's see if the loop executes. So we'll start. As you see, we have clicked this. We see that we see the input. We see the message. Please enter a city name into the input box. We've entered a city name here. Clicked OK. Our city actually goes in, and then the loop stops. It didn't ask us for the second city, so obviously it only executed once. And why it executed once is simply because the condition checking happens after the instruction set has been executed. So this is an example of a do while loop. In a typical do while loop, which as I mentioned earlier, that this is called an army loop, where the condition checking only happens after the loop has been executed. So your do while loop executes at least once, even if the condition of the loop is false in first place. So this is what I wanted to demonstrate by this. Okay, we'll get back to our basic intention to see how we will be capturing certain values into this list box and using it for some accumulation of data, and try to see that what we can do with this thing. Okay, so our counter is equal to 0 here, back again. We are counting again from 0. Our condition we want to do, what are we planning to do here is we are planning to execute this loop for 5 times. So it accepts 5 different cities from us, and we can actually put this value into the list box 5 times. So let's do that. So our do while loop has been changed. Obviously One of the reasons for do while loop, why do we have to create? We can do the same purpose with a while loop as well. We don't have to create a do while loop in this case. So if we are initializing a variable, probably we want this loop to run at least once, so our variable gets initialized. So if we had this counter, written right here, which we can't do in this example because every time we'll run this loop, the counter will be reset to 0. But if you have any variable you are initializing here and you want that variable to be initialized, so in that process you want the loop to execute at least once. So that could be a situation in which you are using a do while loop. So which means you are initializing some values, and that is why you would like to put them into a do while loop. Otherwise, the same thing can be achieved with just a normal while loop. So that is what we will be doing. So now this is just a while loop, not a do while loop, and this is just to demonstrate that the same thing can be achieved with a while loop or with a do while loop. So this is my while loop. The condition here is the counter should be less than equal to 5. The counter is initialized by 0, and then it keeps on adding the city into this. So we will be adding all the cities into it, right? Okay, so let's do that. While we are here, I would also like to demonstrate removing of items from the code as well. I think let's also do that. Let's put another button over here. Remove, or you can call it as remove city. Rename this button as remove button. Remove button. We'll also put a label here. As I said, you can do copy paste of the label. So I'll say Control C and Control V. I'll press the Control C and Control V keys to quickly create a label, and then I can change this this label text. Be careful what is being selected in the property window. As you can see, the name is selected. So if you do any change, you do any typing, the name property will be changed. So you have to go and look for the text property here. So here I have this. So click this button to remove city. City from ListBox. Now this could also be basically what I want is that this has to be first selected and then it has to be removed. So I can say that select city and click this button to remove from ListBox. Okay, so we have this label and we have this button over here to remove the city. Now I will be programming this button here. In order to remove the button from the city, we will be adding this code. In fact, before we go there, I guess I have forgotten one thing, and I did explain to you earlier that since we didn't add a counter here, a counter has to be added or has to be incremented in a particular loop, and that incrementation can happen in different ways. You can use a PostScript incrementer as counter plus plus. You can say counter is equal to counter plus 1, which is also equivalent to saying that counter plus is equal to 1. Now this is same as saying counter is equal to counter plus 1. So this is just a statement, a short form of this long statement, which is called assignment increment operator. So any of these counter syntax counter statements can be used. You can either use the PostScript one, which I explained earlier, or you can use the increment assignment one as well. So this is imperative. If you don't do that, your loop will obviously not increment, your counter will not increment, and the condition sitting over here will never be false. So if the condition always remains true, then the loop will never stop. It will become an endless loop. Okay. So let's come back to the remove button code. Now here we will be removing a particular item. Now before we do that, we have to select a particular item from the ListBox. So how do you pick up the selection first? So we'll say ListBox dot selected item, selected index. So whenever, and in order to capture this, I would also need to have a variable declared as integer type to pick up the selected index, and just to display, what selected index obviously comes here. I can display a message box dot show to display whatever value we have right here. So you said selected item in you have selected the item with the position so I would say that the item, so you have selected the item position, or rather I would say index, as and here I would have position displayed over here. Okay, now this obviously would be displayed just to say what position we have selected, to display that yes, we have selected the position. Now this is the first stage to just see what we have selected and to remove it. Now in order to remove it, obviously we have to use specify the remove at property, the remove at method, to remove that from the list box. So we will use this position, and this message box is just to display the position whatever we have. So eventually we will specify that city from the list box, and here we have list box dot items dot remove at, and we'll specify the position variable here to remove that item from the position. Right? So this is basic code that we have got with us so far. Let's save it and let's execute it. So we have add city, please enter a city in input box. Another city. And finally we have PMB. Okay, did we put down the counter correctly? That is what we have to figure out now. Okay, so looks like we have 6 cities here. And why do we have 6 cities? We'll look at it. What exactly we have put up into our code. I think we are starting from 0 to 5, obviously. So that is why we have 6 cities over there. Anyway, so we have this city. Now say for example we want to remove a particular city from the list box. So we select we can select any city. Let's select Limpopo and let's say remove. So once we say you selected the item position index number 3. So as you can see in my list, the position of this, if you do a natural count, will be 4. I have the 4th item in the list. First is Durban, second is Joburg, third is Cape Town, and 4th is Limpopo. So why is it saying index position number 3? Is because it starts counting by 0. So the index position for Durban is 0. The index position of Joburg is 1. The index position of Cape Town is 2. And the index position for Limpopo is 3, because the count starts from 0. So you have to keep that in mind. And once you say okay, you see that it has removed that item from the list box. Now what happens if you don't select an item from the list box? Now in that case, if you click on remove button, it says you have selected a position index -1. So that means if you don't select any particular value from there, the value that goes into position is -1. And in that case, you will see that this statement of listbox1.items.remove at, and since the position value is -1, throws a error, or what is known as exception. So it is called argument out of range exception, because your list box is treated as an array, and it shows you that the value in the position variable is -1. As you can see here on the screen itself, it is shown as -1, and because of that this position is not valid. So you have to prevent this error by putting up some code, and we'll come back to that code again to see how we can handle that error by making sure that we don't land up into this situation where the user has not selected any item in the list and has clicked on the remove button, which leads into the error. So we'll come back to that. All right, so this is so far I think before my video goes too big, I must just stop this and start refresh to further take you into this tutorial. Thank you.